people who we know have been on ISIL websites, living here in the United States, U.S. citizens, and we're allowed to put them on the no-fly list when it comes to airlines. But because of the National Rifle Association, I cannot prohibit those people from buying a gun. This is somebody who is a known ISIL sympathizer, and if he wants to walk in to a gun store or a gun show right now and buy as many weapons as ammo as he can, nothing's prohibiting him from doing that, even though the FBI knows who that person is.
All right, a Trump supporter walks into an Obama town hall thinking he's got the mic drop question of the century on guns. Spoiler, he did not. Obama took that whole argument apart in real time, and by the end of this, the guy's basically holding an empty bag. Let's get into it.
It's a good guy.
So this dude
why then do you and Hillary want to control and restrict and limit gun manufacturers, gun owners, and the responsible use of guns and ammunition to the rest of us, the good guys, instead of holding the bad guys accountable for their actions? And Mr. President, if I may, I'd like to use Chicago, your hometown, a city that has some of the strictest gun laws in the nation, a city that for decades and still is under Democratic control, a city that has an outrageous and even embarrassing murder rate as my first example. Why can't we round up these thugs, these drug dealers and gang members, and hold them accountable for their actions, or allow the good people in Chicago access to firearms to protect themselves?
Good. All right. Well, let me, it's a multi-part question, so let me just say a couple things. First of all, the notion that I or Hillary or Democrats or whoever you want to choose are hell-bent on taking away folks' guns is just not true. And I don't care how many times the NRA says it. I'm about to leave office. There have been more guns sold since I've been president than just about any time in U.S. history. There are enough guns for every man, woman, and child in this country. And at no point have I ever proposed confiscating guns from responsible gun owners. So it's just not true. What I have said is precisely what you suggested, which is, why don't we treat this like every other thing that we use? We used to have really bad auto fatality rates. The auto fatality rate has actually dropped precipitously, drastically, since I was a kid. Why is that? We decided we had seatbelt laws. We decided to have manufacturers put airbags in place. We decided to crack down on drunk driving and texting. We decided to redesign roads so that they were less likely to have a car bank. We studied what is causing these fatalities using science and data and evidence, and then we slowly treated it like the public health problem it was, and it got reduced. We are not allowed to do any of that when it comes to guns, because people, if you propose anything, it is suggested that we're trying to wipe away gun rights and impose tyranny and martial law. Do you know that Congress will not allow the Center for Disease Control to study gun violence? They're not allowed to study it, because the notion is that by studying it the same way we do with traffic accidents, somehow that's going to lead to everybody's guns being confiscated. When we talked about background checks, if you buy a car, if you want to get a license, first of all, you got to get a license. You have to take a test. People have to know that you know how to drive. You don't have to do any of that with respect to buying a gun. And when we talked about doing effective background checks, It was resisted because the notion was we were going to take your guns away. I just came from a meeting today in the Situation Room in which I've got people who we know have been on ISIL websites, living here in the United States, U.S. citizens, and we're allowed to put them on the no-fly list when it comes to airlines. But because of the National Rifle Association, I cannot prohibit those people from buying a gun. This is somebody who is a known ISIL sympathizer, and if he wants to walk in to a gun store or a gun show right now and buy as many weapons as ammo as he can, nothing's prohibiting him from doing that, even though the FBI knows who that person is. So, sir, I just have to say respectfully that there is a way for us to have common sense gun laws. There is a way for us to make sure that lawful, responsible gun owners like yourself are able to use it for sporting, hunting, protecting yourself. But the only way we're going to do that is if we don't have a situation in which anything that is proposed is viewed as some tyrannical destruction of the Second Amendment. And that's how the issue too often gets framed.
So this dude stands up, real confident, and starts going off about how Obama and Hillary want to control and restrict law-abiding gun owners, throws Chicago's murder rate out there like it's some kind of gotcha, and asks why we don't just round up the thugs instead. Classic NRA greatest hits set list. First thing Obama does, he just calls it out. Flat out says the idea that he's been secretly plotting to confiscate everybody's guns is not true, and he's got the receipts. More guns were sold during his presidency than almost any stretch in American history. That part's just fact. Gun sales genuinely spiked during the Obama years. That's documented, not spin. So think about that for a second. If this man was the gun-grabbing tyrant conservatives spent 8 years screaming about, why'd sales go up instead of down? Because that whole panic was never based on anything real. It was marketing. Then Obama drops the analogy that honestly should end the debate every time. Cars used to kill a ton of people. We didn't ban cars, we just regulated them. Seatbelts, airbags, drunk driving laws, better roads. We studied the data and fixed the problem like adults. Guns? Congress won't even let the CDC study gun violence as a public health issue. Not, won't fund a solution, won't let them study it. That's not a gun rights issue, that's just being scared of your own facts. Also documented, there was a real legislative restriction that choked off federal gun violence research for years. And then, the knockout. Obama points out people flagged as ISIL sympathizers, actual known extremists, can't get on a plane, but there's nothing stopping them from walking into a gun store and buying whatever they want. Read that again. Too dangerous for a Southwest flight, not too dangerous for an AR-15. That's the moment right there where the whole any gun law equals tyranny argument just collapses. You cannot want maximum national security paranoia everywhere else and zero restrictions the second it's about guns. Pick one. And the wildest part? Obama never once said take away your guns. He said hunting, sport, self-defense, all fine. All he asked for was research and basic common sense. That's it. That's the radical socialist agenda, apparently. So yeah, a guy came in loaded for bear and left with nothing but a car analogy stuck in his head. This clip's been floating around for years and it still hits because Obama never even raised his voice. Let me know. You think there's still a real comeback to this one, or is it just game over?